Welcome, everybody. My name, for those of you who don't know me, but I think everybody knows me at this point, so I introduce myself anyway. So I'm Tina Paratino, Mama T. I always feel really weird doing like online stuff. I'm so much better in person. So if I'm socially awkward online, forgive me. So Brandy, why don't you introduce yourself too, since you're sort of co-hosting this with me today? I don't know, everybody knows you.
I don't know that everybody knows me either, but a chunk do. I'm Brandy, the other half of this show. And before we forget, everybody should have chat capability. So if you don't want to mic in to ask a question, feel free to chat in, and I'll be watching those as Tina talks.
Yeah, so if you guys just kind of like rule of thumb, if you keep your mics muted, if you do have a question, feel free to jump in. You don't necessarily have to wait to the end for questions. If you are having trouble miking in or whatever, just send a quick note to Brandy and she'll make sure that we address any of your questions. So this is our first time putting flexible dieting rules of the road together. So I have to say that I actually enjoyed putting all of these slides together. It reminded me of my corporate life that ended about a year ago. So I kind of had a lot of fun with the slides. Hopefully you guys will enjoy them. Recording everything on here, so you guys will have access to it after the fact. Feel free to take notes, of course. You'll also get copies of the slides. I will, of course, ask you not to share this outside of what you receive from us. Just because, we don't want, you guys paid for this, so why would you share it with somebody else, right? So, so you guys will all get copies of all of this information. This is really a basics of what flexible dieting is, what it isn't, how to be successful with it, how to make it into a lifestyle, because I think it's got a lot of, there's just a lot of false information out there about it. I think a lot of people overthink it, make it too complicated, or oversimplify it. So there's a lot to it. So we want to just sort of demystify the whole flex dieting, if it fits your macros thing. And hopefully you guys will get some good information out of this, and you can always give us some feedback later. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Here's our agenda. I'm not going to go through everything, but this will give you a little bit of an idea of all the information that we put together for you guys. So we're going to kind of go over the basics, what it is, what it isn't. I'm going to give you guys some basic information just on macronutrient importance, because I think that to really understand how to flex diet, you're going to need to really understand what the heck macros are and why you care and why it's important. Give you some ideas about how to actually put all of this together. So not just like, here's your calories, here's your macros, now go play, right? Go color. So a lot of people get really confused about how to actually put their meals together. I find that's where people struggle the most, because I think we get set in this. I mean, we all have over the years, whether we've competed or whether we've just been dieting human beings, which as women, I'm sure all of us have been at one point in time. You get a notion that there are foods that are good and bad, and we get kind of stuck on the whole like brown rice and sweet potato thing, and you kind of forget that there's a whole world of food out there that you really can eat. So we'll get into some of that, some tips and tricks for really making sure that you're tracking appropriately, because it's a huge aspect of this. I think it's another place where people really tend to fall down if they're not tracking accurately. Things can go awry fairly quickly. I'm going to give you some of my own sort of flex diet hacks that you may not be aware of. And then we're going to kind of put it all together, show you how to put the meals together, and then hopefully we'll have time at the end, and I can, just because MyFitnessPal is our flexible dieting tracking app of choice, I have some tips and tricks for really how to utilize MyFitnessPal too. So that is our agenda. Let's make sure nobody has any questions on kind of what we were covering, or did anybody think we were covering something else today? Just make sure everybody is where they're supposed to be. All right. So the tenets of flexible dieting, really, flexible dieting is a way to take the body's basic energy needs and nutrition and turn them into an eating regimen. So our basic energy needs really is calories. Calories are energy. It's how we function. I don't know if you guys watch much TV, but there has been a commercial on lately that I am absolutely in love with. I think it's a Special K commercial. And while I'm not absolutely in love necessarily with Special K, but the whole commercial is about women eating. It's like women do all these things. We have babies and we work out and we take our kids here and there and we eat, and we eat unapologetically. And I think that's honestly just like the coolest commercial, because I think it's really setting a good example for the fact that, life isn't just about depriving ourselves and dieting and trying to, be skinny or what have you, right? It's we eat. And so how we eat is really what is going to make the biggest difference in our lives, and whether or not we're going to be successful in whatever our goal is, whether it's losing body fat, gaining lean mass, maintaining, whatever your goal is. Flexible dieting fits into every aspect of whatever your goals are. It works for them. So basically, it's about eating what you enjoy. Doesn't mean you're going to get to eat anything and everything you love on the face of the planet, but it is about eating things that you enjoy and not force feeding yourself things that you absolutely can't stand, because there's just no reason for it. As soon as we take out things we want, or as soon as we try to force ourselves to eat things that we hate, we're going to buck against the system, we're going to hate it, and we're going to eventually fall off and just not make any progress. So basically, a few things to keep in mind as we go through all of this, right? And this applies, keep in mind that everything we're talking about today applies to whether you're in a bulking phase and trying to gain lean mass, or you're dieting and you're trying to lose body fat, whatever. It's just you're going to tailor it for your goals. So keep in mind your goals as we go through all of this, and then sort of remember these tenets apply regardless. So basically, you want to tailor your daily food choices to your preferences, goals, and lifestyle. That's the big one. Your preferences, your goals, and your lifestyle. Um, Preferences being the foods you like, goals, what we just talked about, and then your lifestyle. So your lifestyle is your a surgeon and you're in the ER for 8 hours at a time doing operations. Well, guess what? It is highly unlikely you're going to be able to eat every 3 hours, because if I'm your patient, I'm sure you're not going to stop and to eat taking a protein shake, right? So if eating every 3 to 4 hours doesn't work for you and your lifestyle, then that's okay. We find the thing that does work. So it is about fitting this into your lifestyle, not making your lifestyle fit into it. There is no food that is inherently good or bad. You will hear me say this over and over and over again. There are foods that are more nutritious than others. Nothing is good, nothing is bad. Get that out of your head right now. Nothing good, nothing bad. Nutrient-dense food should fill the majority of your daily food choices, with the allowance for treats once your nutrient requirements are fulfilled. So this is the key. So it's not about, well, I really love Pop-Tarts, so let me just eat a bunch of Pop-Tarts and then I can get all my calories from Pop-Tarts. Well, yeah, you probably could, but unless you have actually filled your nutrient goals, right? So your proteins, your carbs, your fats, your fibers, and things like that, and we'll get into that a little bit later, then those Pop-Tarts really have no business being in there until those other things are met. This is a big one. I don't care what kind of diet you're on, but forgiving momentary dietary lapses, keep calm and carry on. This is true. I don't care how you diet. I don't care if you're bro dieting or flex dieting or starving yourself or what have you. If you fall off, you can always get back on. It is not the end of the world. It does not mean to continue on your binge. It means to just kind of forgive yourself and move on. And then the biggest thing, and this is where I see people have the hardest time, is the long-term compliance. So flexible dieting really is something that's a lifestyle, and it should be something you can sustain for a fairly long period of time, for the rest of your life, really. But long-term compliance is really the key to sustainable improvements. If you don't give something long enough to work, it's not going to work. If you're constantly second guessing and changing this, that, and the other thing, then you're never going to actually get the opportunity to see if something works for you. So kind of repeating to yourself, thou shalt not deprive yourself of foods you like. Thou shalt eat on a schedule that you like. Thou shalt view dieting as a lifestyle and not a quick fix. Ding, ding, ding. Keep that in your head. And thou shalt accept dietary blunders and calmly get back in the saddle. Point blank, period. Those are really kind of that's the premise of all of this. And when it comes down to it, while we'll get into some details about how this works, it really comes down to how much you eat is more important than what you eat. Okay, so calories in versus calories out. We're going to get to that in just a second. Anybody have any questions on this part before we kind of move, keep carrying on? Okay. All right. So what is flexible dieting? So first of all, it's a lifestyle. This is something that you should be able to adopt, get into. And I'll tell you really quickly, I have been doing this for at least since about 2012, since I stopped competing. So at least the last 5 or 6 years. Consistently, I'll say consistently and off and on. It is a lifestyle. Once you get the hang of it, while it can seem a little overwhelming at first, once you really make this a lifestyle, it's not hard. And guess what? Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, Tina, do you really track everything you eat every day all the time? And the answer is no. But I don't have to anymore because I've done it for so long. It is so ingrained in what I do. The foods that I eat, I can literally almost tell you to the gram what something weighs without weighing it because I've been doing it for so long. So it's okay for me at this point in my life, while I'm maintaining, I'm not trying to lose, I'm not trying to gain, for me to be able to eyeball things, this, that, and the other thing. But when you're first starting out with this, being very accurate and very consistent and doing it every single day is the only way it's going to become a habit for you. And so in the beginning, sort of kind of doing it and kind of not isn't really an option. So just realize that it's going to be a long-term lifestyle for you. So it's also kind of commonly known as if it fits your macros. So that was really the start of the whole flex dieting thing. But unfortunately, the if it fits your IIFYM, if it fits your macros, kind of started to get a bad rap because everybody that was hashtag IIFYM was also eating Pop-Tarts and ice cream bowls and all kinds of other stuff. So people came to the belief that that's all people did with flexible dieting, which is really not what we do, right? But ultimately, the premise is breaking down macronutrients, protein, carbohydrates, and fats, micronutrients, your fiber, your vitamins, and your minerals, and tweaking that to achieve a body composition goal, right? So you would eat more of these things if you were trying to gain lean mass. You would eat less of these things if you were trying to lose body fat. The macronutrients and micronutrients make up the majority of everything in our diet. Everything's made up of a protein, a carb, a fat, vitamins, minerals, except maybe water. So, so what are the macronutrients? All right, so the three main ones, protein, carbs, and fats. Then there's a fourth, and don't worry, we will talk in detail about alcohol, and I'm not going to mention any names because I myself also like to partake in the adult beverage. So I think it's important for people to understand how alcohol plays a role. So I am not the coach, and I am not the person who believes that we should live the rest of our life without alcohol. I strongly believe in the power of alcohol, but okay, we'll get to that later. So protein, so basically everything has a calorie count that goes with it. So every one of these macronutrients, okay? So protein and carbohydrates each have 4 calories per gram. So if you're weighing something, if I were weighing a 100-gram piece of chicken, I would have 400 calories if it was 100 grams because it's 4 grams 4 calories per gram. Same thing with carbohydrates. Fat is the most energy dense or the most calorically dense. So that has 9 calories per gram, which is why you're not going to get, if you eat a very high fat diet, your calories are going to be eaten up much, much quicker than if you're eating a lower fat, higher protein carbohydrate. We'll get into that in just a little bit. And then alcohol actually has 7 calories per gram. So it's another one that's very calorically dense. And, besides adding in mixers and all kinds of other things that add calories to it, just your basic alcohol has 7 calories per gram. And I have a whole slide on that, so we'll get to that in just a little bit. So basically, with flexible dieting, rather than your typical calorie counting, i.e., I'm eating 2,000 calories a day, flexible dieters are actually looking at their macronutrient breakdown. So I am looking to eat a certain amount of protein, a certain amount of fat, a certain amount of carbohydrates, which might total 2,000 calories each day. The reason why we do this is because we know that these different macronutrients can have different effects on our body composition, and specifically talking about things like protein and how important that is. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But the premise is a lot of people will eat, let's say that a 1200 calorie, I think, a day diet is probably more accurate. We see a lot of, Brandy and I see a lot of clients coming to us that are eating 1200 calories or less. And every time I really look at what they're eating, it ends up that they're, maybe eating 50 grams of protein and 250 grams of carbohydrates and 75 grams of fats. Well, that's probably, so yeah, technically that macronutrient breakdown, I mean, the calorie count is fairly low, but macronutrients in general there are lacking for whatever their goals are. And everybody on here on the webinar is involved in fitness in some way, right? So everybody is trying to either compete. Everybody wants to be able to perform in the gym. So this is where how you break your macronutrients down is really going to come into play. Does anybody have any questions on just the macronutrients in general? Okay. All right. I'm actually gonna, I have to, I can't see all my slides, so I'm just going to, I think, minimize everybody here for a second. There we go. Cool. All right. I can't see you guys, but I'll be able to hear you if you jump in. All right. So why should we do flexible dieting? So my personal experience, and this is really my quote. So in all my years of competing, from 2005 to 2012, I ate on what we would call bro diets, very clean eating diets. I probably ate the same 5 or 6 foods over and over and over again for months and months on end, thinking that was the only way that you could get lean for a competition. So basically, if I ate my chicken and my rice and my broccoli, or my tilapia and my asparagus and my occasional spoonful of peanut butter, and whatever it is that my coach told me to eat, I would get lean. Well, the reality is I was getting lean because I was in a calorie deficit. I wasn't getting lean just because I was eating chicken, rice, and broccoli. If I plugged all of my foods that I was eating for the day into my fitness pal, which I did frequently, even though I was on meal plans, and I was curious even back then, well, what am I actually eating? And I think at one point I found out I was eating like 900 calories a day. So hence the reason why I coach the way I do now, because I did all the dumb shit when I was competing, and I'm not interested in letting you guys do that to yourselves. So basically suffered a lot of issues from it, a lot of GI issues from restricting whole food groups for long periods of time. But really the most detrimental thing, I think, is starting to get into this pattern of disordered eating where you believe that foods are good or bad. And my wake-up call came one day shortly after I stopped competing in 2012, when I ate a banana and I felt guilty eating a banana. Well, bananas are not a bad food. They're absolutely not a bad food, but I felt bad eating it and I thought I was cheating. Well, if you think you're cheating because you're eating a banana, then you've also got some disordered thinking about food. So that's really when wake-up call for me, and I started to work very hard to change my own thinking about food. So even as far back as 2011, 2012, I was trying to sort of disordered eating myself into realizing that, there was no such thing as good and bad or clean foods. I love my little picture here. So I hate when people say, well, this is a clean food. Well, what the fuck does that even mean? Right? Did you spray it with Windex? Does that now make it clean? No. And I'll give you another example. I love this. I have this argument with another coach friend of mine who does not believe in flexible dieting because she believes that it's just an excuse for people to cheat. And again, it's not cheating, it's just eating for your goals, right? So we're not talking about cheating. So this is the good, bad food mentality. And she will allow her clients to eat protein bars all the time. Well, if you've ever read the ingredients label on a protein bar, to me, there is nothing clean about the ingredients on a protein bar. However, my bag of potato chips, and yes, potato chips are they're my thing. The only thing in my bag of potato chips is olive oil, potato, and salt. To me, that's a far better it's not the same as a protein bar, but looking at the ingredients wise, at least it's things that I can pronounce and my body can process. So to me, that's cleaner than your protein bar. So, kind of the whole clean eating thing, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So basically, when it comes down to it, there's no good or bad foods. Flexible dieting really is the most sustainable, healthy way of eating so that you can have success. You can restrict yourself to chicken, rice, and broccoli or tilapia and asparagus only for so long. You will eventually go binge on that ice cream and pizza, and then you will feel bad about it. And then you will get into this binge diet cycle and you will never make progress. And you guys can tell me, just shake your head if you agree. Yeah, exactly. Been there, done that. So anyway, that's why I'm such a big proponent of flexible dieting. Been there, done that. I don't want people to have to suffer the way that I had. All right. So again, I can't hammer this home enough. Foods are not good or bad. So there are no miracle weight loss foods, no good foods, no bad foods, just macro ratios. Okay. So both of these foods right here, we have a McGrilled chicken burger and we have brown rice and tuna cooked with olive oil. That's what EVU means in case you don't know, extra virgin olive oil. So both of these foods have the exact same macro breakdown. Both will achieve the exact same effect on our body composition. When food gets into our body does not know if it's healthy or unhealthy. Our body doesn't actually care. It is not thinking, oh, is this a good food or is this a bad food? Our body simply has to break down the food so that it can process the proteins, the carbohydrates, and the fats into the areas that we need them for our bodies. Does that make sense to you guys? You see how, I probably could have, even the McGrilled chicken burger, I think is probably considered a more clean food. I should have picked something far junkier like pizza and made that, the same macros, but this gives you still an idea. And if you were on, a meal plan from some coach or following something that told you all you could have was, fish and brown rice, well, you'd probably feel good if you had a really late day and you didn't prepare your food. You'd feel really guilty if you had to run by Chick-fil-A and grab that grilled chicken sandwich, right? You'd feel bad. You just cheated on your diet. Well, no, you didn't, right? So this is kind of where I want to get you guys thinking. All right. So, what flexible dieting is not, and this is where I see a lot of error being made in the flexible dieting, the process. It is not an excuse to eat everything and anything you want without regard for nutritional value just because it fits. I see clients all the time thinking that flexible dieting means, well, I'll just eat 3 protein bars a day and then a protein shake and then like one meal from Chipotle. Okay, that's great. It fits, sure. That just fit your macronutrients. But that is certainly not how you want to eat on a regular basis. Okay, you really want to be fueling your body the way you want your body to run. And this is Brandy's thing, and I agree with her. But she said make sure you put this in the slide. Right. So if you want to be a race car, you got to fuel your body as a race car. You want to look like whatever this thing is over here. I actually think it is some kind of race car, but that's not the one I'd want to look like. Then sure, go ahead and eat Pop-Tarts all the time. Go ahead and eat protein bars all the time. If you want to run well, if you want to perform well in the gym, which is what all of us are trying to do, you have to treat your body that way. That's how we have to start looking at our nutrition. It is fuel for our body. It's how we're going to run. It's how we're going to function. It's how we're going to be able to go to work every day, go to the gym, get lean, gain mass, whatever. It all comes down to nutrition. All right. So the next thing I want you guys to start really thinking about is your nutrition in terms of priority, because really that's the central tenet or the central premise around flexible dieting. Okay. So over here, you have this really great nutrition pyramid, and I got this from Eric Helms, who's just like, to me, one of the most brilliant guys out there as far as, the flexible dieting lifestyle, and he coaches bodybuilders and he does a lot of webinars and he's pretty super cool. But I love this pyramid, so I wanted to steal it from him. So this is basically going to show you how you want to start thinking of your nutrition, okay? So at the bottom, right, so the big stuff at the bottom, number one thing down here that encompasses the entire pyramid is your behavior and lifestyle. That is the foundation of everything that you're going to do. You have to make the food fit your lifestyle, not make your lifestyle fit the food or fit the diet. When I was competing and I was on these very restrictive meal plans, I was a hermit. I never went out of the house. I wouldn't go to family functions. I wouldn't go out to dinner with meals with friends because I couldn't deviate from my plan, right? So that is not making a diet fit my lifestyle. That is making my lifestyle fit the diet. So, which isn't really going to win you any friends. So that's your foundation. Next is your energy balance. And energy balance is your calories in and your calories out. Okay. So when it comes down to it, CICO is how we call this, calories in versus calories out. Your calories in are going to encompass everything that comes into your body. This one is actually the most simple to describe because it's your food and your beverages. That's what's coming into your body. Air doesn't give you any calories, so breathing doesn't count. So this is what's coming in. Calories out is a little bit more difficult to describe because this is where people be like, oh, well, somebody else's metabolism is faster than mine, so they just inherently burn more calories. Well, it's kind of true and kind of not. But your calories out are dependent upon your body functions. So this is things like just your body breathing and living, right? So your heart beating and your lungs breathing and things like that. There are calories that you need just to sustain life. And then there are your physical activity calories. So that's your exercise. That's the number of steps you take on your little pedometers. And that's, all of your physical activity. The two that I think are a little bit harder to really nail down and where I think people's metabolisms come into being sort of faster or not faster. One of the big ones is called NEAT, NEAT, and I didn't put that on the slide, but I'll tell you guys what that is. It's non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that means all the things that are not counted as me walking in the gym, whatever. So people who have really active jobs. So like the guy at UPS who's loading the UPS truck, he's got a really active job. That is considered non-exercise thermogenesis. Things like I actually, when I was at the ISSN conference, the International Society of Sports Nutrition, somebody said, one of the presenters was talking about NEAT and said, if you look at all the people in the room who are fidgeting in their seats, they're probably the leanest people here. And I don't know that I actually looked around and tried to determine that, but what he was getting at is, people who are sort of constantly fidgeting and moving around and bouncing around in their seat, kicking their legs and things like that. So you just are burning more calories just by doing that. That's your non-exercise thermogenesis of calories. So that burns calories. And then the other thing is the thermal effect of food. So this isn't a lot, but it does, the amount of food you eat actually helps you burn more calories. So certain macronutrients are more thermogenic than others. So like protein, excuse me, protein is the most thermogenic of all of the macronutrients. So the more protein you eat, technically, the more calories you will burn. Again, we're not talking about hundreds and hundreds of calories here, but it all adds up. So if we're talking about getting the most bang for our buck and our energy balance, all of these things help you with your calories out and will affect your overall metabolism. So basically the premise is if your calories in, so the energy coming in your body is greater than the energy going out of your body, then you will gain. You will either gain lean mass or you will gain fat. Really depends on how you're handling your nutrition. If your calories in are less than your calories out, that's going to equal loss. Again, it'll depend on your nutrition. Hopefully you're losing body fat and not losing muscle mass, but it all comes down to how what your nutrition looks like. All right, so that's your energy balance. Anybody have any questions on how the energy balance works? So the next time you're sitting in a meeting, fidget, move around, bounce around in your seat. I have ADD, so this is not a problem for me. I literally used to sit in meetings. I would kick my legs. I'd be doing leg extensions under the table. When I used to wait for the train every day, I was doing calf raises. Like I can't hold still no matter what it is. So fidget, it burns more calories. Macronutrients is the next thing. Okay, so we have calories. This is energy balance is calories in, calories out. Your macronutrients, these are your proteins, carbs, and fats. So this is the next rung. So this is the next important thing. And then third up, we have micronutrients. Then nutrient timing. So yes, we have all been told for years and years and years, it is best to eat every 2 to 3 or every 2 to 4 hours small meals. Yes, that is absolutely the ideal way of doing things. However, if that doesn't fit your lifestyle, it's okay to only eat 3 meals a day. It's okay to only eat 4 meals a day. It's okay to eat 8 meals a day as long as you're not going over your energy balance. So you find that nutrient timing is up here. It's like fourth on the list of important things: calories, your macros, your micros, and then your nutrient timing. And then the very last thing is supplements. So if your first thought is protein powders and vitamins and this and that and the other thing, and you're not thinking about this down here, then you've got your pyramid upside down. So supplements are just that. It is meant to supplement your macro and micronutrients when there might be a reason for them to be in a deficit, or of course if you had some medical reason to need to take them because you were deficient in a certain vitamins. But if you're making sure that you're fueling your body with the whole food sources, and we'll talk about this in just a second, then the supplements become less and less important. So they are just that. Brandy, did I see somebody have a question a little bit ago? I thought I saw something light up. No? No, okay. All right. So let's get into the nitty gritty of why I care about proteins, carbs, and fats and why we need them. Okay. So like I told you before, the majority of people the majority of women that come to Brandy and I approach us to help them, lose weight or get ready for the stage. I would say probably 90% of them are eating far too little protein. I've only had like one come to me eating way too much protein. Most people are not eating enough. So protein is the most important macronutrient to physique athletes and really to just human beings in general. Like I don't even care if you're a physique athlete. It's the most important. So basically, just real quick, I like this. So the word protein comes from the Greek word protos, which means of prime importance. So there you have it, right? So after water, our bodies are largely made up of protein. So protein is used by the body to build, repair, and maintain muscle tissue. So if our goal is to look like the cover of Oxygen magazine or whatever with ripped and lean muscles, protein is going to be king here. It's essential for growth and the building of new tissue, as well as the repair of broken down tissue. So you should know already that when you're in the gym and when you're working out, you are breaking down muscle tissue. You are not building your muscles in the gym. You are breaking them down. You build your muscles after the gym when your muscles are recovering and you're fueling your body with enough protein to repair those muscles. So if you're going to the gym day after day after day and you're lifting heavy weights and you're not eating adequate amounts of protein, your body is not going to have the repair mechanism, the building blocks to actually build that muscle. So you are putting yourself at a disadvantage for actually being able to put on lean mass. And just real quick, because I don't have this in the slides, but just so you guys know, lean muscle, lean muscle tissue is the only metabolic tissue in the body. So muscle, the only metabolic tissue in the body, which is why the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn. So just make sure everybody understands that. More muscle you have, more calories you burn. Less muscle you have, less calories you burn. So if you want to put on more muscle so that you can eat more food, right? That's our goal. We want to be able to eat more food. But to do that, we have to have adequate amounts of protein to go along with our training regimen. All right. So if we lack adequate protein, our body will actually start to break down its own muscle just to meet its daily protein needs. The really big thing here is when you're in a severe calorie deficit and you're eating sub 1,000 calories a day and you're working out and you're working out and you're working out, you're running. Your body will actually start to eat its own lean muscle tissue. It's the quickest source of energy. It's not going to go to fat. It's not going to go to carbohydrates. It's going to go to a protein because it can break it down quicker. So you're going to end up eating yourself, basically. So all that hard work you're doing in the gym is really becoming for nothing because your body has to use its own muscle tissue just to meet its protein needs. So the basic premise, really, in non-obese populations, anywhere from 1 to 1.5 grams of protein, even as low as 0.8 grams of protein for certain people per pound of body weight is ideal for muscle growth. Um, you don't need protein in excess of 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. It does not actually make you gain lean mass any quicker. So having um, 500 grams of protein is not going to make you put on muscle any faster than if I were to. So if I'm 123 pounds and I eat 123 grams of protein, I'm going to be just fine. Um, if I tried to fill up all my calories with all of that protein, then I may be missing out on some essential nutrients and some of the things that I need from carbohydrates to fuel my workouts. The reason why they say in, people that are actually overweight, if you were talking about a 200-pound person who was really only about 120 pounds of lean mass, giving them 200 grams of protein isn't necessary. So at that point, looking at kind of what their lean body mass is would be more appropriate to determine how much protein. But for most of us, everybody on this webinar, 1 to 1.5 grams is, even as low as 0.8 you can get away with. So the three things you want to keep in mind: protein is the most essential macro for physique athletes. That means all of you on here. It's also the most satiating and the most thermogenic. So satiating mean it keeps you the fullest, the longest. It burns the most calories just by eating it. So protein is good. So everybody can say that with me. Protein is good. We love protein, right? So, and I love protein. I am a proteinaholic. Like, I can't honestly eat enough protein. I have to back off my protein or else I eat too much. All right. So anybody have any questions on protein before I move on to carbohydrates? Are you guys good? Understand all of that? Cool. All right. So carbohydrates. First and foremost, carbohydrates do not, I repeat, do not make you fat. Carbohydrates are the preferred fuel source for our bodies. So it is our brain, our body and our brain, I can't even say preferred fuel source for our energy needs. Carbohydrates fuel our workouts. There are simple carbs and there are complex carbs. So you have faster burning carbohydrates, you have slower burning carbohydrates. This is where people get a little bit, what's the word I want to look for? People get a little wonky about, like, well, I can't have sugar. Sugar is bad for you. Having too many eating carbohydrates after 7 o'clock at night is bad for you. It's not. It's not true. It comes down to your overall calorie intake, which is why I say carbohydrates don't make you fat. Extra calories make you gain fat. I don't even like to say make you fat. They make you gain fat. Too many calories, not too many carbohydrates. And every type of carbohydrate has its place in your diet. Okay, so pre and post workout is a great time to have those more simple carbohydrates. Those are the more, the quicker burning carbohydrates. Even we're talking about things post workout like gummy bears. That's a very simple sugar. People who might be using like a glucose supplement. So I know I have a lot of clients that are using a supplement called Ignition by First Form, which is probably about the quickest, fastest absorbing form of sugar you can possibly have post workout because they want to speed up their recovery. So different times of day require different types of carbohydrates, but there are no bad ones. If you're trying to gain lean mass, having anywhere between 2 and 3 grams per pound of body weight of complex carbohydrates. If you have a higher percent of body fat, then you want to drop that down just a little bit. But these are really, really, really overall sort of baseline numbers. It really depends on, if we're talking about competition prep and physique athletes, it really depends on where you are in your prep. It does not mean you're always going to get 2 to 3 grams per pound of body weight. I'll tell you, as a coach, when we get into helping clients drop body fat for competition, it's always carbohydrates and fats that we're tweaking and dropping. It's never going to be protein. So this is where we get the most calories from people so that we can get them into a calorie deficit. But when you're trying to gain lean mass and then you're more of a bulking phase, then this is kind of where you want to be ultimately. Simple carbohydrates are the best for pre and post workout. So those are your quicker digesting things, white rice, rice cakes, cookies, things like that. So again, a couple of basic things. Carbs don't make you fat. Too many calories in excess of your energy needs will make you gain fat. It won't make you fat, but it'll make you gain fat. Carbohydrates fill the muscles with glycogen and water. So full and well-hydrated muscles are essential for athletes. Your scale weight will increase with higher carb intake because you have muscle glycogen and water, not because you gained fat. The number of check-ins that I have from clients every single week who freaking the flip out over a 1.2 ounce gain on the scale, and they had, they had a higher carbohydrate meal the day before or what have you, and oh my god, I'm heavier, and oh my god, this and the other thing. Carbohydrates fill your muscles with glycogen and water. Water in the muscle makes you gain more weight on the scale. It's just scale weight. It's not fat. It's water in the muscle. You want water in your muscles. Water in your muscles is a good thing. Glycogen in your muscles is a good thing. It helps fuel your workouts. Actually, overall, makes you look leaner when your muscles are nice and full. When you don't have any glycogen in your muscles fall flat. They're like little balloons that deflate. And then you actually look softer when you don't have glycogen in your muscles. So test it out sometime. Go very low carbohydrate for a couple of days. You will suddenly see the scale go down 5 pounds. You'll be like, oh my God, it's a miracle. I'm going to do low carbohydrate because it's a miracle. Carbohydrates make me lose weight. No. Yes. Actually, they make you lose scale weight. You did not miraculously lose 5 pounds of body fat in the last 2 days because you stopped eating carbohydrates. Eat them, put them back into your diet, and you'll gain the 5 pounds right back. It's not fat. It's just water. Any questions on carbohydrates? Because I think that's where people sort of flip their biscuit the most. Okay, cool. All right, so fats. All right, I got to make sure that I'm not talking too long on some of these things. All right, so the fats, you absolutely have to have fat in your diet for hormone production. Okay, so fats regulate our hormones. So as women, I think it's all women on here, we have to have some fats. I try not to take my clients' total fat intake below 20 to 25% of their overall calories. So getting lower than 20% of your overall calories from fats, getting less than 20%, starts to put you in a little bit of a dangerous realm for not having enough fat to ensure that your hormones are regulated. So this is just a quick rundown of the different types of fats. There are certain ones that you do want to kind of stay away from, or at least limit them. Doesn't mean you can't have things like the polyunsaturated, but you do want to limit those. You want to kind of, not that everything you want to eat has saturated fat, but saturated fat actually has some health benefits to it. And the mono unsaturated fats as well. And you guys can kind of read this when I send you the slides, but just keep in mind that you have to have adequate fat intake in your diet to keep your body's hormone production where it should be. I had somebody send me an oh my God, can you believe this diet from somebody else's coach? And this coach had her fats down to 1 egg yolk a day. That is 5 grams of fat. That is dangerous. She was on all kinds of performance enhancing drugs too, so she had a world of other problems. But so I think fat was the least of her worries, but don't go too low on your fats. Alcohol, our favorite, the 4th macro. All right. So with a flexible dieting approach, alcohol in moderation is okay, but you want to consider your goals, right? Muscle growth or fat loss. It has an effect on both. And I want you to pay attention to this. The reason why I say all of these things is because, yes, I want us to enjoy life. We are human beings. We are social people. We want to be able to have a cocktail now and then. And that is okay. But you also want to consider the effect it's going to have on your overall goals. And if your goal is to be a physique athlete, you really want to consider its effects on your muscle growth or your ability to lose body fat. So this is the important thing. As alcohol is consumed, the metabolism of protein, carbs, and fat are put on hold. Your body sees alcohol as a poison, and its number one goal is to get the poison out of the body. It must metabolize the alcohol before it can metabolize any other thing in your body, most importantly, fat. So it's not burning off all the fat you just went to the gym to try to burn off. It is now trying to metabolize. It's spending all of its energy metabolizing the alcohol. So that's the biggest number one thing to keep in mind. So it really can, when you're having too much, have a pretty detrimental effect on you making progress towards your goals. It's a diuretic. It can impede your athletic performance. If your goal is to be a physique athlete, physique athlete, your athletic performance in the gym, or whether you're a marathoner or whatever the case may be, is going to be impeded by your alcohol consumption. Um, Alcohol can inhibit the recovery of muscle tissue after exercise. So if you decide you went to the gym, you just had a like crazy hard workout, you decided to come home and kick back with a few, understand that again, it's got to metabolize the alcohol first. So you have just stalled your muscle protein synthesis, which is that protein repairing the muscle, building muscle. That's what muscle protein synthesis is. So keep that in mind. A rule of thumb that I use with my clients is to stick to no more than 2 alcoholic beverages 2 times a week. And this applies to if you're in a maintenance mode or building phase only, not in cutting. I do not actually believe that alcohol has any place in the cutting process, especially when we get within 16 to 12 weeks of a competition. Um, if I have a client that has a wedding to go to and they're 6 weeks out from their show and they want to have a glass of wine, that is 100% okay. But any type of regular alcohol consumption is going to be nixed as far as in getting into actual competition prep. So again, keep in mind that the alcohol has the 7 calories per gram. So if you are going to drink, you need to replace carbs or fats, not your protein calories, to account for the alcohol calories. So you want to just make sure that you're accounting for that. And really, to save yourself a bunch of additional calories that you don't need, try to stick to single liquor, wine, and beer. It's just easier to account for the calories. You just don't need all those sugar-laden mixers. So, you know, Arnold said in the movie Pumping Iron, he said, milk is for the babies. When you grow up, you drink the beer. Who agrees? Has anybody seen Pumping Iron? Tara, I know you have. Milk is for the babies. Okay. Okay, so what are these macros? So this is a macronutrient cheat sheet that I put together for you guys because we get a lot of questions about, well, what the heck are, you know, I had a client say, I don't know what to eat for all these carbohydrates. Should I just eat rice and potatoes at every meal? And I was like, good God, no. She said, what else should I eat? I was like, all of them. Like there's like 20 of them on here. There's lots of carbohydrates. So don't get narrow-minded about, you know, potatoes and rice and things like that. So whole grains, oats, vegetables are carbohydrates. Fruits are carbohydrates. Rice, couscous, cereal, potatoes, corn, pasta, bread, crackers, sugars, all of that is considered a straight up carbohydrate. Some of the ones here that are kind of shaded in the middle, some of these have some protein and carbohydrates, and actually some whole grains have some protein to them too, so you just need to be a little cautious. It's not strictly a carbohydrate. So things like beans, legumes, sprouted grains, the quinoa, uh, fruit-filled yogurt, that's supposed to be fruit yogurt, not fruit and yogurt. So like if you had a Greek yogurt with fruit in it, it's got some probably a little higher in sugar, so it's carbohydrates and protein. And skim milk. Skim milk's on here because skim milk is a little bit higher in milk sugars. So, you know, just it has a little bit more carbohydrates in it. And then you have your kind of strict proteins here. I mean, this is protein as protein goes. This is protein, right? So it's the meat. Tofu, if you're a vegetarian, your Greek yogurts, low-fat, non-fat cottage cheeses, turkey bacon. I put turkey bacon in the proteins column because it's a little bit lower in fat. Regular bacon is going to go kind of fat and protein. So you just want to kind of keep those things in mind. And obviously some of these proteins are a little higher in fat, like buffalo can be lean. There are some cuts of buffalo that aren't. So you just want to be careful of those things. But these are your proteins. And then you get into your fats. And here we have another one that's a mix of protein and fat. So eggs, right? So if you're eating the whole egg, you're getting about 5 grams of fat and about 6 grams of protein out of like one large egg. So it's kind of a little bit of both. So you just want to limit having a lot of whole eggs, watching your fat intake. Whole milk, whole fat Greek yogurt, things like that. Those have a little bit more fats in them. And then you get into your straight up fats, avocados, coconut, nuts, nut butters, egg yolks, oils, olives, flaxseed, things like that. These are your fats. So all of your oils, nut butters. I didn't put like actual butter on here, but that'd be up in the oil, your fats category as well. So this is not an all-inclusive list, but it'll at least give you an idea. So when you're reading nutrient labels, you want to just be conscious, thinking that if you're just picking something that's a protein, but it's got a bunch of fruit in it, then you've probably just jacked up your carbohydrate intake as well. So these are just things to think about. All right, so any questions on the macros now that we're going to switch over to micros. You guys all pretty clear on why we need all those cool macronutrients? All right. So the micronutrients, so when you're consuming a flexible diet focused on wholesome, nutrient-dense foods, the key is to ensuring adequate micronutrient intake as well. This is why we do not run around eating Pop-Tarts all day long, right? If I eat Pop-Tarts all day long, I am not going to, okay, let's pretend I eat Pop-Tarts and whey protein shake. So I am definitely getting in my protein, but the rest is all Pop-Tarts. And that means I am not getting my fiber. I am not getting my vitamins. I am not getting my minerals. I have a friend who takes a vegetable pill every day. He never eats a vegetable, ever, 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 which makes my stomach hurt just thinking about it. I feel like, how do you ever take a poop? Anyway, I digress. But you have to have, make sure you're fulfilling your micronutrients along with those macros. And this is going to come from eating a wide variety of the lean proteins, vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. If you're eating those things, if you're filling your bodies with those types of foods and not a bunch of protein bars and crappy, these birthday cake protein bars are killing me. I don't know what they are, but I see them in every damn body's meal logs, like at 2 or 3 of them a day. And I'm like, for breakfast, and then another one at, like, what the hell? Stop with the cake. They must taste great. I can't eat protein bars, so maybe I'm just a little jealous because I can't eat them. But yeah, like occasional. That shouldn't be making up all of your protein sources, all of your sources. All right. So here's the big one, right? So you guys are all physique athletes. You're trying to be physique athletes. You're training like physique athletes. You have got to eat to perform. This is about fueling your body for performance. That's what food is. We are fueling the race car. We are not fueling the jalopy. What you put in your body will determine how well your body will run, right? So this includes crappy food, crappy protein bars, and alcohol. You put those things in your body, you're going to run like that beat up race car. You put lean meats and some dairy and some fruits and some vegetables and things like that in your body, it's going to run much better. I'm not saying never have those other things, but they certainly shouldn't make up any more than 20% of your diet. Hold on, there's some messages here. I do have some chats, Brandy. Thank you. I love the phrase that what you eat in private, you wear in public. Thank you. That was a good one. All right. So basically, eating to perform, follow the 80-20 rule, right? So as a general rule of thumb, and I like the 90-10 a little bit better than 80-20, but so we can really make people's lives feel a little bit better. If you get 80 to 90% of your total daily calories from relatively unprocessed, nutrient-dense foods, you can fill the remainder with 10 to 20% of foods that most diet gurus would frown upon: your birthday cake protein bars, your Pop-Tarts, your gummy bears, whatever. So if you're meeting all of your other nutrient goals and you only limit the other stuff to about 10 to 20%, you're going to be covered. So if you're eating 5 meals a day, that's 1 out of your 5 meals a day. That doesn't mean every 5th meal should be a crap food, but it might mean 2 meals out during the week. It doesn't mean all 5 of your meals are out during the day. Okay, so these are just the things to keep in mind. All right, so this is a big one, trigger foods. And I can tell you, I know my trigger food is potato chips. I don't keep it in the house because I'm not going to portion it out. I'll tell you, I'll be honest, I do portion it out. I weigh out 1 ounce of potato chips, and then I'll weigh out another ounce of potato chips. And then I say, fuck it, and eat the whole bag. It just is what it is. It happens. I know when I buy a bag of potato chips, I'm going to eat the whole thing. I'm at peace with that. But for most people, especially when you first start out with flexible dieting, this is where I see a lot of people go wrong, and they say they can't handle flexible dieting. They need something more restrictive because they can't just have a bite of something and because they're going to eat everything. Well, if you know you have a trigger food like that, then you have to do something about it. You have to either get control over it, or you have to get it out of just get it out of your life, right? So don't have that trigger food if you know you can't control yourself around it. Literally right before we started the webinar, about an hour before I came across this article that one of my fellow coaches posted. She was sharing it on Facebook. The link is down here, so when you guys get the slides, you'll be able to see it. But basically, it's a whole article on how to conquer trigger foods, and it gives you basically a step-by-step process. and being able to sort of break the cycle of those trigger foods that you have, right? So basically, sort of the number one thing, and I tell people this all the time, like, you're in control. Food does not control you. You have got to come to terms with the fact that your brain, this thing right up here, controls everything you do. You're in control of this thing. So if your brain tells your hand to go grab the bag of potato chips, that is something you actually can take control over. You choose not to, but you can. So this is a really cool article. So if you guys want to take some time to read it, you know, when you get the slides, I definitely recommend it, especially if you're somebody who struggles with trigger foods. But until you get control of the trigger foods, just avoid them completely. Get them out of your house. Don't buy them. Don't even have a bite until you actually can get some control over that. All right, so let's get into, anybody have any questions on any of that stuff? Just kind of the basic tenets of everything about flexible dieting before we kind of jump into how to make sure that we really are successful with this whole thing. Anybody? You guys all good? You hanging in there? Look down here at the bottom of the slides. It's the Cake Bite protein bars.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there an app or somewhere I can find out my daily sugar intake? I couldn't find it on the app that I was using.
What, to actually be able to see how much sugar you're taking in or how much you should take in?
I should take it.
There isn't really anything to tell you how much sugar you should take in, because sugar isn't inherently bad for you. It's not the devil that
Okay.
people say that it is. So I mean, I'm sure there are, Brandy, you might know because of the population of folks you deal with more, but I don't personally restrict, I don't tell my clients to only eat this certain amount of sugar or not, because it comes down to, if you're focusing on more of the complex carbohydrates and things like that, and then putting the simple sugars around your workout, then eating too much shouldn't be an issue. Like having sugar from fruit isn't an issue. You know, when calories start to get a little bit lower, so I tell my clients all the time, you know, if you're eating 300 grams of carbohydrates a day, you should be eating as much fruit and, you know, all different kinds of carbohydrates that you want to. If we get our carbohydrates down to super low because it's 2 weeks out from the show and you're only eating 75, well, you're probably not going to want to fill that with like gummy bears and fruit, because you're not going to function very well on that. You're going to want to have more vegetables and complex carbohydrates and things like that, because you're just going to feel better. You don't have very many calories as it is. You don't want to waste them on, you know, a simple sugar that's not going to sustain you very long. But when you have tons, there really isn't a limit, as far as I'm concerned, for a physique athlete who is monitoring their nutrition with all of the other things. Does that make sense? But
Yeah,
Brandy,
because
do you know of what a recommendation is for like sugar intake?
Yeah, I mean there is an RDA on it, I think, and it's pretty low. But then my question would be, why are you worried about sugar specifically? Are you talking about eating cookies, or are you talking about fruit that you're worried about?
no, it's because I'm so used to having a coach giving me specific foods to eat. So I'm scared to put like a tablespoon of sugar in my coffee.
Girl,
Stuff
put
like
some sugar in your coffee.
so
Put sugar in
I'm
your
really
coffee.
like I don't like I'm so like, okay, do I put sugar in it? Is it okay to put sugar in this and
It's
stuff?
okay.
So
It is okay.
okay.
It's okay, Lynn, because but the key is, right, so if you're, like I said, if you're in competition prep and you're only getting 75 grams of carbs, you probably don't want to waste your carbohydrates on a teaspoon of sugar in your coffee. Use stevia, save those carbs for something you can chew, right?
Okay.
You know, but if you're drinking coffee post workout, something like that, sugar in your coffee is beautiful, perfect, and absolutely, you know, a great thing to do.
I mean,
Okay.
I'll say, as far as the people I work with, sugar isn't bad in moderation, right? And you know, there's obviously reasons why you don't want to have a mass amount of sugar. There's health impacts based on that. But going back to the trigger conversation, if sugar is a trigger for you, avoid it, because you don't need it. But you know, if you have it under control otherwise, you know, put a little sugar in your coffee if that makes you happy. But I'll also say, when we talk about sugar being not ideal, don't wrap fruit into that. I constantly get questions from clients, or really just feedback saying, well, I'm afraid to eat fruit. Fruit's bad for you. I can't eat fruit, right? But I'm looking at their food log and they ate, you know, Wendy's and French fries and had 19 beers. Well, no, I'd rather have you have strawberries. Fruit is not bad until you get into later stages of prep. So don't wrap the whole concept of sugar being bad. Don't wrap fruit into that inherently. That's my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah, that's good points. Yeah, don't wrap fruit in it. And that's where I say if you're in a building, I have clients that are eating upwards of 300 350 calories a day. It is really hard for them to get 350 grams of carbohydrates with just clean foods, right? So at that point, putting in, that's why I say, the gummy bears pre and post workout, the gummy worms, things like that, they have a place. So if you're going to eat them around your training and when they belong. If you only get 50 grams of carbohydrates a day, you don't want to waste it on that, right? And you
Yeah.
probably don't even want to spend it on fruit sugar, because you're going to want to have foods that are a little bit more satiating, and fruit sugar is just kind of processed. And I'll get into some of that in a little bit. Does that answer your question,
Okay.
Lynn?
Sounds good. Thanks.
Cool. All right, so let's flex for success, right? So here are some tips for how to flex and be successful. All right, first of all, know your calorie and macronutrient needs. If you don't have a coach like Brandy or I telling you what they are, please do not follow your app. Your app will starve you. MyFitnessPal, if I put in my stats and what I do every day, it wants me to eat like 1,100 calories, and I would be dying. So understand your calorie and macronutrient needs. We could talk offline about how you actually determine that if you're not actually working with a coach that can help determine it for you. Weigh, measure, and track everything. BLTs, bites, licks, and taste count. I have a little picture down here. I posted this on social media the other day. I went to my nail salon, and you think you're innocently they have the best candy. So I always pick a few. I innocently ate like 4 little pieces of candy, and that was 274 calories. These are bite-sized candy. I wasn't eating like an entire Snickers bar. So those things will add up. If you're picking at things all day long and you're grabbing the Hershey Kiss out of your coworker's candy jar, and as you walk by each time, you really have no idea how much those things add up. When I was competing, I can't tell you how many half-eaten chicken tenders I ate off my kid's plate, and half-eaten fish sticks, and, oh, are you going to finish those fries? Here, let me have a couple of those fries. Well, okay, all of that adds up. So you want to make sure that you're actually tracking everything. Be prepared. You have got to, even though this is a flexible approach to nutrition, it doesn't mean wing it and just eat out and grab on the go and eat whatever. You've still got to prepare your food. It may not be a really rigid and regimented thing where somebody is telling you to eat this exact thing for every meal. You have got to plan and prepare your meals. Yes, it gives you flexibility to go out occasionally. Remember that whole 10-20% rule, but the rest of the food should be things that you are preparing yourself. And I will get into why, and you're going to see some graphics that I put together that really show you why a lot of this processed and calorie counted foods that we eat out isn't very accurate and can derail you very quickly. Create a meal plan for yourself. So don't try to flex everything every day. You will drive yourself absolutely insane trying to be that flexible and have that much variety. So know what your macros and calorie needs are, make a meal plan based on those, and then prepare those foods based on that so you have everything you need for the week. Eat the same foods often for ease, but allow for enough variety to get your micronutrients. So when I tell people to give themselves variety, I do not mean to eat something different 7 days a week. Variety for me, my example would be, so this week I am eating strawberries and blueberries as my fruit. Well, I'm not going to eat strawberries and blueberries every day for the next 365 days. I need some variety in my fruits. So next week I might have some pineapple, and then the week after I might have grapefruit, and then the week after I might get blackberries and raspberries. And honestly, sometimes it just depends on what's on sale at the grocery store. But that's how I get variety. This week we might prepare 4 pounds of chicken breast on the grill. And then next week, maybe we do lean turkey burgers. That is how we do variety in my house, instead of trying to have something different for every single meal, every single day. Makes it much easier for tracking, much easier for accuracy, and really just to kind of keep you from losing your mind and keeping your calories on track. And of course, limit your alcohol. All right, so that's in the do column. In the don't, do not assume that lower calories are always better. So this goes along with understanding what your macronutrient needs are. So work with a coach who understands, or we can talk offline about how the best way to kind of figure that out. Don't wing it. I just talked about this on the other side, and guesstimate what you're eating. You would be surprised how different things are when you actually weigh and measure them. So don't think you know, and make sure you are weighing and measuring so you're tracking everything. Don't try to overflex and eat anything and everything. Just talked about that. Again, the 20% of your calories from, don't get more than 20% of your calories from prepackaged or commercially prepared or restaurant foods, because you cannot trust the labels, okay? And my best tip down here, that's why there's a little red X through it. So it means don't actually do it. Eat food off of other people's plates. It's their calories, so they don't count. I like that. These bars and stuff, you will find that the calorie count is not accurate, people, not based on what you're eating. It can add up over time. So the more processed prepackaged foods that you eat, the less accurate your calorie tracking is going to be. Now, if you're making progress eating this kind of stuff all day long, all right, that's cool. Then eat it. But if you've noticed that you're no longer making progress and your weight has stalled, and you swear you're logging and tracking everything right, but you're eating a lot of these little processed things, you're eating out a lot, I would be willing to bet that you're not as accurate in your tracking as you think. You may be logging everything, but my guess is your foods are not, the calories you're logging aren't accurate. All right, tracking for success.
See, there's a question, I'll let you answer it, about asparagus.
What about it?
It says, is there another food besides asparagus to get lean? It's supposed to be a diuretic, but it's gross in repetition.
Don't eat asparagus. If you don't like asparagus, don't eat asparagus. Makes your pee stink. Yeah, there is a diuretic effect to asparagus, but there is absolutely no reason to eat it if you hate it. It is not, and if you're talking about getting leaner, a diuretic is not how you get leaner. That's just, aside from saying it, it's just dumb. Like, there's just no reason. Don't eat asparagus if you like it. Don't eat it if you don't like it. Seriously, people. If you really need if you feel like you need a diuretic, but that's a whole other conversation, drink like dandelion tea, but don't eat food because it's a diuretic. That's not how you get lean. I don't know who asked it, so I'm not gonna go any further. All right, so tracking for success. Count it all because it all counts. So this goes back to count everything, 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 everything. If you just lick the peanut butter off the spoon, you probably just took in at least 25 calories just from licking the peanut butter off the spoon. If you're like me, and look, I'll admit it, I've told you guys this before, I used to weigh out my almonds, and if it was off, right, so maybe I got an ounce of almonds and it came up as like 1 point, I don't know, 2, I would take out like the 2 almonds and then eat them. So it would equal an ounce. So you want to make sure that your food meets your macros, not your macros meet your food. So don't make your scale weight meet your food requirement. Make sure that you're doing that. And I wouldn't log it. I was like, well, these don't count. This isn't an ounce. So I'll eat these and these don't count. So yes, it does. So don't do like me. Even some condiments definitely count. So a lot of condiments have calories in them. Realize that the FDA lets companies say that things are 0 calories, 0 fat if it's like less than 5 calories. So like those spray butters and things like that, once you've put 50 sprays on your potato, you got some calories in there. If you really only use like, if you look at the nutrient panel on there, it'll say like 1/4 of a spray or like a spray. Who fucking uses 1 spray, right? You just probably dumped the whole thing of butter on there and sprayed everything. So you gotta watch that stuff because it really does add up. Even some spices, this one kind of blew my mind. I was using cinnamon like it was my job. And one day I actually looked it up and I was like, holy shit, there are actually quite a few calories in cinnamon. So you want to just be conscious of it. Doesn't mean don't use it, just account for it. Use a reliable tracking app. MyFitnessPal is my choice, but I know a lot of people recently are using My Macros Plus, I think is what it's called. I'm not familiar with it, but I wanted to throw it in there because I certainly don't get any kickback from MyFitnessPal. It's got its own issues. Track as you eat or you may forget later, or better yet, track ahead of time and don't deviate. Okay, so put your plan in place, put it in MyFitnessPal, that's what you're eating. Don't change it, or if you do change it, make sure you're switching things out and you're doing it sooner rather than later, so you don't forget trying to go back later and figuring out what you're eating. All right, I'm getting low on time, so I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. Make sure you use a digital food scale. You can even get a little mini food scale. Keep it in your purse. You can weigh and measure your food at the restaurant. Do not be ashamed to do so. These are your goals. This is what you're trying to do for yourself. So don't be ashamed to weigh and measure the food at grandma's house at Thanksgiving if you feel that you need to, okay? If you want to stay on track, these are the things that are necessary. Weigh your foods in grams and ounces rather than using scoops, cups, spoons, etc. This applies to even supplements like your whey protein. You can get a lot more calories or a lot less calories than you think you are by just scooping that protein into your container every day. If you really want to be accurate, put your shaker bottle on the scale and then throw your protein in there, and you may find that you've been overeating or undereating even your protein. Use grams and ounces rather than using measuring cups and spoons, because you will find, and I got a slide here that'll show you, those measurements can be significantly different in the amount of calories that come out. Make sure you are weighing you're tracking your foods as raw or cooked. So when you're selecting a nutrient or a food to put in your log, like in MyFitnessPal, for instance, if you chose Purdue 4 ounces of chicken, unless it says cooked, it's probably a raw measure. So if you're using a raw measure as the calories that you input, but you're actually measuring you're actually weighing your chicken after it's cooked. So if you have 4 ounces of cooked chicken, but you logged it as just 4 ounces of raw chicken, your calories are way off. You're actually eating way more calories because your chicken shrinks. So about 4 ounces uncooked becomes usually about 3 ounces cooked. So you're eating more than you're actually tracking for. So make sure you're choosing the right measurement. Weigh your prepackaged foods too. Wait till you see the next slide. I did an experiment. You will find I didn't find a single prepackaged food in my home that was the weight that, so the 6 crackers did not equal 28 grams. There was another one I did, potato chips. The 19 potato chips wasn't 1 ounce, right? So those things are better to be weighed in grams and ounces as well. If you really want to get super accurate with foods like cooked or raw vegetables, cooked or raw carbohydrate sources like grains and stuff, cooked or raw meats. My favorite website is this one right here. It's the USDA's website. You can actually put in like literally like any food. My favorite is to be able to go in there and kind of look at like ground meats raw versus ground meats cooked, and it'll give you the difference in the calories. So that's a really good one. And then you can add those foods to your tracking app yourself and use that over and over so that you know that you have the consistency instead of relying on somebody else's that are in there. Basic rule of thumb, you want to try to stick to within 100 calories plus or minus of your calorie goal for the day. Protein and carbs plus or minus 5 to 10 because they're 4 grams 4 calories per gram. And then your fats, you want to stay within a little bit less, so like you want to try to get within a 3 to 5 gram, just because it's a little bit more calorie dense. So nothing is ever going to be perfect ever, so don't try to wrap your mind around the axle of oh my god, well my protein's a little higher, my carbohydrates are a little under. It's okay. It's never going to be perfect. Brandy, are there questions on there that I need to be answering?
No, I got them.
Okay. I see it lighting up, so I just want to make sure. All right, so this was my little experiment, so I can show you guys. So this over here is some screenshots from that USDA website that I like to use. So you can see, again, so this is 93% lean ground beef. This is the raw measure. I think this is the raw measure. This is the cooked. So 100 grams raw is 20 grams of protein and 152 calories, but 20 grams cooked is 25 grams of protein, so that's 5 grams more, and 182 calories, so it's 30 calories more. So if you're not making sure that you're picking the right foods in your MyFitnessPal, for instance, of cooked or raw, you're definitely going to be off on your calories. So this is a big culprit of people over or even under eating a lot. Here's the prepackaged food. This is the one that I actually did pictures of. So this was a box of Triscuits. Says that 6 crackers are 28 grams. So I could just pull 6 crackers out of the box. That would be fine. And if I wasn't trying to be super specific and trying to get super lean for a competition, then just having 6 crackers is probably totally fine. I don't want you to think that it's not. But if I'm really trying to be specific and I'm not making progress and I need to understand exactly where all my calories are coming from, then I'm going to weigh them out. Because when I weighed 6 crackers, it was actually 33 grams instead of 28. So at 4.25 calories per gram, this actually ended up being 141 calories, which is a 20 calorie difference. By itself, not a big deal. But if you're doing this multiple times a day or multiple times a week, they add up. Peanut butter, our favorite. How many of you like to eat peanut butter straight up off the spoon, just like this? That's a tablespoon, right? I used a tablespoon and I scooped it out of the jar. Well, unless you're actually, peanut butter is a huge one. If you're not weighing your peanut butter, you'll definitely be overeating in calories there. So I was just trying to weigh out a tablespoon of peanut butter. But actually, when I weighed that, it ended up being 21 grams versus it would have been 16 grams for 1 tablespoon serving, not 2 tablespoons. So I was way over in calories just by sort of dipping that spoon in there. Now, even if you use an actual tablespoon measurer, it's going to come out differently. So the best thing to do is put your spoon on the scale, zero it out, scoop out the peanut butter, and then get the accurate measure, or put the peanut butter into a container. Any questions on that? Those nasty little boogers. Those of you who love Lenny and Larry's cookies and the cake protein bars and everything else, there's a lawsuit against Lenny and Larry's cookies because their nutrient labels were completely and totally inaccurate. My guess is pretty much all of those prepackaged foods are probably inaccurate in some way, shape, or form. All right. So weigh, measure, even all your prepackaged foods. That's the whole point of that one. Okay. Don't assume that the nutrient labels are telling you the truth, because their nutrient labels' sole purpose in life is to get you to think that you're eating something healthy and make you eat more of it. All right. Flex diet hacks. So here, this again, we talked about making the diet, fit your lifestyle, not your lifestyle fit the diet. If you can eat 4 to 6 meals a day, that's still ideal, right? So you're going to keep your blood sugar regulated. You're going to keep hunger at bay a little bit more. It is a little bit better for muscle protein synthesis to try to keep, a constant flow of protein into your body all day long. But if you can't do 4 to 6 meals a day, if you can only do 3, or if you can only do 2 is kind of roughing it, but 4 to 6 meals is ideal. But if you can't, don't stress about it. It's the overall caloric intake, not the meal timing, that matters as much. Remember that pyramid. Try to get at least 20 grams of protein with each meal. Ultimately, we talked about having a gram per pound of body weight. If you're a 98-pound person, and I'm not going to mention any names, but somebody on here only weighs about 93 pounds. She still needs like 120 grams of protein. I'm not going to have her eating less than 120 grams of protein, because just there are some scientific studies out there that kind of say the ideal for most people is 120 grams, and then you get into body weight as the person gets a little bit bigger. So if you can get in 20 grams of protein with each meal, that's going to be kind of your ideal for muscle protein synthesis. So that you're constantly having protein in your body to help repair those muscles so that your muscle can grow, because that's our goal. All right, focus on foods that have volume. I made a post on social media with one of my favorite volume foods today, which was my burger salad. So volume foods are king, right, with flexible dieting, especially when your calories get a little bit lower. So eating things like lots of vegetables, especially the high water content vegetables like cucumber, zucchini, and salad greens. You can eat nearly an entire head of iceberg lettuce, which I actually happen to love. It's very sweet and it's good. I use it as wraps and I use it as giant salads. It doesn't have a ton of nutrients in it, but it's nice and voluminous. So I ate a giant bowl like this big, and the whole thing had like 280 calories in it because I had so much lettuce. And I just felt like I was eating a lot. So it made me feel better. So do things with volume. Popcorn's another like huge favorite of mine. Like if you're a snacker, you like salty, crunchy foods, popcorn is a beautiful thing. If you got the carbohydrates for popcorn, it's got great fiber in it. Throw a little salt and a little spritz of olive oil on it, and it's really a great snack. Stick with like low fat proteins because you're going to be able to get more bang for your buck there as well. Obviously, if you have the fats and you can afford more fat, then feel free to eat, you know, fattier proteins like chicken thighs and things like that. When you're eating out, look at the menu ahead of time. Like, don't go to the restaurant with zero plan in place because inevitably you will eat the entire basket of tortilla chips. I know I will. I try to look ahead of time, see what options are on there so I don't get there and I'm starving and I pick something crazy. That way you can look it up in MyFitnessPal, kind of plan for it, track it, and be prepared when you go. Same thing, like when you're attending functions and get-togethers, like with family, you know, don't be afraid to bring something that you've prepared so you know the macronutrient content of it. Make something you love, make your own recipes that you can share with other people, and then you know kind of what's in it instead of trying to guesstimate what's in what everybody else brought to the party. I always make sure I bring something that you know I know I can track, or something I know that's not going to kill my gut. So all right, so couple of rules of the road, just to kind of recap things. In case you guys didn't hear me talk about this enough, I'm going to tell you it again. Calories are king. How much you eat is more important than what you eat. However, you do want to live by the 80-20 rule. You want to fuel a race car, not a jalopy. I don't even actually know if that's how you spell it, but you guys know what I mean. 80-20. 80% of your food should come from foods you prepare that are nutrient dense, fulfilling your macro and micro needs. 20% can come from those other things. But if you're not meeting your 80, you don't get the 20. Weigh, measure, and track everything and do it accurately. Limit your prepackaged, processed, and restaurant foods to no more than once or twice a week, or only 10 to 20% of your total calories. Okay. So I do not recommend eating out every day. Yes, flexible dieting allows you to do that, but you don't want to do it every day. This comes down to the not flexing, over flexing, because you cannot accurately know what the calories are in the food that you're eating. It will add up over time and you could end up not making the progress that you want to. Eat a variety of foods to make sure you get your micronutrients, and then the alcohol thing again. So here's a big thing, because I feel like, at least in our world right now, everybody is so focused on what's the minimum I can do to get by, instead of what's the most I can do, maximize all of my efforts so I can achieve maximum results. So instead of trying to figure out what's the least you can do and still make progress, think of it more as, I want to do everything I possibly can to make progress. And if that means being a little bit more restrictive and not having your trigger foods, instead of trying to make everything easy, well, life isn't fucking easy, right? This isn't easy. What we're trying to do isn't easy. It's a process, and it can be enjoyable. You don't have to make it terrible on yourself, but you need to actually try to maximize everything you do so that you can have maximum results. All right, so putting it all together. So here's an example of like how to put all these carbs and fats and proteins and stuff together. So this is a sample meal plan that I put together for one of my clients. So I just grabbed it because it was convenient. So you guys have an idea of how I might put some meals together and why. All right. So over here, so this is basically a log out of MyFitnessPal. So she gets about 1,700 calories. It was, we had 136 grams of carbs, 49 grams of fat, and about 192 grams of protein. So basically, first meal in the morning. This is somebody who trains at night, so your pre and post workout meals are down here. First thing in the morning, when you wake up, you are breaking the fast. It's a good idea to break fast. Get it? Breaking the fast. It's a good idea to have some protein, carbs, and fats in your meal. It's a great way to start your day. If you train in the morning, then you may want to consider your pre-post workout things that I have down here. But for those of you who train later at night, have a nice balanced meal, basically with protein, carbs, and fats in the morning. Then the next thing you want to do is focus on what your pre and post workout meals are. So you have meal number one when you get up, and you have your pre and post workout meal. You want to make sure that you're centering a good portion of your carbohydrates around your workout, pre and post. If you get 400 grams of carbohydrates a day, this is not going to be an issue. You got carbs to go all day long. If you have very few carbohydrates, and hers aren't super high, hers are about 136, so that's not very high. So we want to focus a good portion of those around her training, 30 to 40 grams more if you have them to spare. And then I'm going to take the rest of the carbohydrates I have, and I'm going to make sure I fill those out in the other meals. So I've got my pre and post workout, my morning meal. Those each have about 30 grams of carbohydrates each. That's where I want to put the most of my carbohydrates. And then some of my meals are just going to have lower carbs, a little bit higher fat, maybe more protein. I have a good variety of fruits in here. So some meals will be a little bit higher fat, some will be higher carb. You just got to kind of work to pair those up based on the macros that you have. Pre and post workout should be relatively lower in fat, higher in protein, higher in carb. The rest of your meals fill out your fat, your carb, and protein needs. Try to get in at least 20 grams of protein per meal. Like I said, she has high protein, so hers is upwards of 30 or more grams of protein per meal, but it really depends on what your particular protein needs are. So in her daily summary, she got 6 servings of protein, 2 servings of fruit, 3 servings of vegetables, 3 servings of whole grains, and even 1 serving of dairy. If you're not dairy sensitive, there is no reason to cut it out. If you're not sensitive to dairy, do not cut it out. It is not bad for you. Keep it in. Same thing with wheat, gluten, things like that. If you don't actually have celiac disease or some sensitivity to those, don't cut them out. They're full of nutrients. There is absolutely no reason to take that out of your diet. We put the priority on her macro tracking, just like I've been telling you guys, calories first. So we want to make sure we don't go over this 1,743 number, plus or minus 100 calories here or there. Then you want to hit your protein. Okay, so protein is like I said, the number 1 macro. So calories in, calories out, that's number 1, and then your protein requirements. So make sure you're hitting your protein requirements. If you have to flex your carbs and fats a little bit, that's okay. So if you go a little higher on carbs and a little lower on fats or vice versa, ultimately that's okay if you're staying within your calorie range that you need to. As you get into the throes of a competition diet, you get really close to competition, these things are going to matter a whole lot more. But for the general public, or when you're in a building phase, or kind of newer to flexible dieting, these are really standard kind of rules of the road there. And then here I just have a summary of the priority of your meal planning. So again, upon waking, your pre-workout and post-workout. So you guys will have that to take with you. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. So we're just about out of time, but I did want to run through, if you guys stick with me for another moment, hopefully we don't get cut off. So this is, if you use MyFitnessPal, here are some MyFitnessPal hacks. These are things that I give my clients all the time. MyFitnessPal is a great tool. I have everybody get the premium version. I totally think it's worth it, especially if you're really wanting to be very specific with your nutrient tracking. No, I'm not getting a kickback from MyFitnessPal. I just think the premium version gives you a lot more bang for your buck. You get to enter your exact macros instead of just percentages. Some of my clients are getting like 22 grams and 51 grams, and the whole percentages just don't work. So getting being able to set them particularly will work. It allows you to deselect add your exercise calories to your goal for the day. That way you're not getting some random, if you like to log your exercise calories, MyFitnessPal likes to increase them randomly. And then you think you have 2,000 calories to eat instead of your 1,500. You also get to create different macro goals for different days of the week. So like if you're doing lower calories on non-training days and higher calories on training days, you can specifically set those so you're not trying to calculate it all in your head every time you have a different day. And it has this really cool dashboard of what you have remaining for the day. I like that too, so you can kind of quickly see what you have remaining. I didn't do very good this day. I had like 107 grams of carbs left and over my fat by like 10. Whoops. So MyFitnessPal also allows you to create recipes and save them. So I use recipes like it's nobody's business, and I have been steadily putting them in. Eventually they're going to make recipes public. So I'm putting them in there so people will even be able to find my recipes and use them for themselves. They haven't made them public yet. So you can put in all of your ingredients. I have a screenshot up here, and put in the number of servings, and then MyFitnessPal will actually do the macros for you. I like to do this with things like I do a lot of stew and soups in the wintertime. That way you not try to figure it out per meal every time you take a part of that soup for lunch or whatever. It'll just kind of calculate all of that for you. It also lets you create your own foods and meals that you can reuse over and over again. So if I literally eat the same thing for breakfast every day. And so I can create a meal and just plug that into MyFitnessPal. I don't have to add each individual food every day. So it just saves a little bit of time, keeps things nice and consistent. And you can also add your own foods from that USDA website that I showed you. So I do that a lot as well. What I'm actually starting to do for our center stage clients is add foods from the USDA website that I know are accurate, or what I would call center stage approved foods. So you guys can plug in CSFP and you'll see the foods that I know are accurate, and you can choose those for your own logs. Actually, they're public, so anybody can use them. So I haven't put very many in there yet. So if you put in CSFP, you know I've already verified it. So here's a big note on MyFitnessPal. It can't add for shit. MyFitnessPal cannot add. If you ever look at your protein, your carbs, and your fats, and you actually go in and you multiply them times 4 for protein and times 4 for carbs and times 9 for fat, it does not equal the calories. So it's a whole other reason why it can't add. And I think a lot of the foods that are put in have like half grams and half calories, and it rounds things up. So don't try to go crazy over trying to figure out MyFitnessPal's addition, because it sucks. So, I say hit your calories first, but if you're using MyFitnessPal, make sure you're really looking at the macros, and you may have to do some of that calculation on your own, because its calories might be a little wonky. Wow. Okay. So we got all the way to the end. So tell me if you guys have any questions. I've been seeing the question thing lighten up a lot. So I don't know, Brandy, if you've taken care of all those. If you guys have any questions, did I cover everything, or is there?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Brooke.
So based on what you just said, like sometimes in NFP, it'll say I'll like have hit my grams of, that you said for protein or whatever, but I'll be under my calories. Mm-hmm. Should you stop at the grams, or do you fill the calories with other things?
If you've hit your protein, your carbs, and your fats, and your calories are off, just stop with the grams.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you hit your protein and you were under a little on your carbs and over a little on your fat, I mean, you can try to do the calculation of the calories in your head. I mean, it's not off by a lot. It just doesn't always add up. So that's why I always say stay within 100 calories plus or minus of your calorie goal. And then those plus or minuses of your macro goals, and you'll be fine. It's never going to be perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
What else? Who else has questions? Anything I didn't cover? You guys have any questions on anything? There's no way I covered everything you guys wanted to know. Did I really? Wow. Okay.
Well, so can I ask one question? I'm sorry.
You can. Yeah.
My biggest problem is I work out so much, and I early on said, and I don't know if anybody else has this challenge, but stress for me is holding cortisol on my body, and I know that it's tied to thyroid, but and that I'm getting fixed now. But it's the cycle of, we're all killing ourselves working out. I know, all of us. I mean, you're all beautiful women, but it's that time of, like last night I taught cycle, and then I did a heavy weight workout. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I hit the bed and woke up on fire, but I waited too long to eat again this morning. So in the sense of the cycling of the activity to the food, the activity to the food, I don't take breaks. Now today I didn't work out, which is unusual for me. I work out generally every day. So it's that cycle and recovery time, and then the food timing.
But it's that is the most essential thing that I think people really neglect is the recovery from their training. I have several clients that teach classes, they're personal trainers, you know, they're in the gym all the time. So it is essential for them to be refueling their bodies immediately after. If they're teaching a class and they're not really participating, right? So that's not really a workout. So I don't really consider that. But if you're killing yourself in the spin class that you're teaching, that's a workout. So you need to be fueling that as a workout, and then fueling your actual weight training as a workout, and then fueling the next class as a workout. If you're not taking in adequate calories and you're not refueling your body after those workouts, then you're, like I mentioned way earlier in the slides, your body is going to go to its best protein source for its energy, and that's going to be your muscle. So everything you're doing is working against what you're actually trying to do. So the thing I see people neglect the most is killing themselves in the gym and not refueling and not recovering, not giving enough credit to sleep. I mean, this is a whole other webinar I think we could do, but just making sure that you have the right type of recovery fuel for your energy needs. That's the base of that pyramid. If you are teaching 50 classes a day, I have a lot of clients that are, you know, they're teaching all day long. Well, if they're ever going to be able to put on lean mass, if they're really ever going to be able to fuel properly, I got to feed them like 3,000 calories a day, because their energy needs are far higher than somebody who's sitting behind a desk all day long. You can't, you know, if you're somebody who's a marathon coach, right, and you're running all day long, you can't eat 1,200 calories a day and expect that your body's going to run the way that it needs to. Your body will function. So here's the key, right? Our bodies are not designed to look good. Our bodies are designed to survive. Point blank, period. Our bodies don't give a fuck what we look like. It needs to live and survive. Most of us are starving ourselves based on our output of energy and what we're putting into our bodies. Most people are not eating enough. We would all be starving to death if our bodies really if our bodies weren't able to be so efficient at keeping us alive, right? So if my energy output far exceeds my energy input, my body will start to slow down all of its processes, and it will rely on its quickest source of energy internally, because I'm not giving it enough energy externally, and that'll be my protein. It'll slow down my metabolism. So all the extra work we're doing and the calories that we're not eating actually is detrimental, because I'm just going to, my body's going to become more and more efficient at storing body fat, because it needs to know that it's going to have some energy to live off of, since I'm starving it, basically starving it to death. Without actually, we're not going to die, right? We're not in Africa. We're not going to actually starve to death. But that's the piece that so many people don't realize. We're all under eating and overtraining. Wouldn't you agree, Brittany?
Yes, sorry, I was answering a chat. Well, I think the answer to the bottom line is you have to figure out, yeah, exactly what you're saying, what your energy expenditure is, and make sure your calories are meeting that. And, you know, your question about you feel like you're going, the biggest question I would have is, do you feel like you're getting the changes you want, right? Because if your lifestyle and your calories and all that's working for you, because it's not a one size fits all solution.
Right.
No, I think it's the timing that, and I used to have a very heavy teaching schedule, and I backed off so that I could start prepping to do bikini contests and then get to physique. And I just think, bottom line, from what I just learned from your seminar, I'm not eating at the time of the output that I, you know, if I do an hour Zumba class or an hour Zumba strong class, and then I go lift, I got to eat before I go lift.
Yes, ma'am. You need to
Yeah.
initiate the recovery from your Zumba class, and then you need to start fueling yourself for your training, and then you need to recover from that.
I have been screwing myself for 15 years now, not doing it right.
Yep. You're not alone.
No, I know that. But I thank God. I think it created the other condition that I have, which hopefully is temporary, which is thyroid medication, which stopped working and that's the thing, you know, you can get into this pattern where you work. It's like the definition of insanity that you do the same thing.
Yep. That's when you have to, if you're not making, that's why Brady said, you know, Are you making the progress that you want? And if you're not, you gotta, something in the equation is wrong, and you gotta find out how to fix it.
Which is exactly what you just said. It's the
Yep.
timing of the food. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Anybody? I'm zooming through to see who else is here. I saw a bunch of people joined while we were talking. So, all right. So if there's no other questions, obviously I think Brandy was answering a lot of questions as we were going through. So if there's, I'm sorry. Hello. Somebody have a question? Oh, okay. So we'll go through all the questions, make sure we answered everybody's questions that were used during the chat. I will make sure I send out the slides and a copy of the video to you guys all. Hopefully by tomorrow. I just need to figure out the logistics of it. It's my first time like recording one of these things, so I'll figure it out and send it out to you guys. Like I said in the beginning, if you guys joined us late, I will give you a copy, but I ask you not to share it outside of yourself. Because this is we'll be doing these webinars more, and we want this to be for your reference because you attended the seminar, not for somebody else. The same thing with the slides. Things are copyrighted, so we'd appreciate you not sharing it outside of here. If you guys have any questions, you can always reach out to Brandy or I, social media, email, whatever. We're already coaching many of you, so you already have our ear on that. And then any feedback you guys have on this, because this is our first time doing this webinar. So I definitely want feedback from you guys, good, bad, or indifferent, right? So tell me you loved it, tell me you hated it, things you wish you had heard that you didn't hear, or things you might like to hear in another webinar, because we're definitely going to be doing more of these. And even if you even liked the webinar format, just give me a thumbs up if you guys thought this was good, just so I have a quick, do you guys think? I'm scrolling through, everybody's like, yay, thumbs up. Okay, cool. All right, you guys, thanks for hanging with us. Have a great night, and hit us up if you have any questions, okay?
Hey, one more thing.
Yeah.
Once you save this video on your computer, you can upload it on YouTube with the link unlisted. That will be the easiest way to send it out.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. I will probably message you because you're my tech guru, and then you can tell me how to do it all.
Okay.
Thank you,
All
Lynn.
right.
I'll
You're
message you, so
welcome.
make sure I do it all right.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.